Welcome to Manga Machinations! This is episode number 573, and this week we're doing a triple dip on Manga Mavericks books. I'm Dakazu, and with me is Star Fox8
Hello, everybody.
and Morgana Santilli.
Hi there.
Hello, everybody. I hope you are ready for a happy Christmas, because it is almost that time of the year.
And a Merry New Year.
Merry New Year, yeah. Whenever I think of Happy Christmas, it just makes me think of that scene from Harry Potter. It makes me laugh.
Oh, it makes me think of Trading Places,
Oh, okay.
which also has a Happy Christmas, Merry New Year scene. That scene was very racist though, because it had blackface. It was a different time, but very, very good movie.
We're starting off hot.
Yeah, very, very good classic comedy movie. Dan Aykroyd and Eddie Murphy. Dan Aykroyd in blackface. It's a thing.
Mm-hmm. But yes, Seamus has left for vacation. He'll be back later, but the three of us are here. And for the main segment, we are finally talking about the Manga Mavericks books releases. Like 5-6 months later.
Please forgiveness, please.
Yeah, but hey, we squeezed it in for the end of 2025, so.
Is it because 2025 has been a unique year in that, like, halfway through the year, we really hunkered down and came up with a lot of programming. Whereas,
Yeah.
like, before that, there was a while we were kind of going week to week, you know? Like, what we're doing next week, this, and then we just come up with it. But
yeah, we had this year laid out very tightly.
yeah, this was kind of unique for us. We didn't do that for a long time.
Honestly, we didn't even get to the stuff that we needed to because we couldn't do certain things unless all hosts were here, like the retrospectives or the Jianku journeys. So whenever we all were here, we just had to do all that stuff. Like that took precedent. And this year we started taking 1 week off every month, so that took away 12 episodes. So
Feels good.
yeah. But yeah, usually we have our Manga Mac Awards as the final podcast of the year. But this year we're gonna do that in January because that is when Seamus will be available. But yes, I forgot to mention that we are streaming live on YouTube right now. YouTube.com/MangaMacTV. I came a little late, so Darfox, I hope you did all the social media stuff.
Mayhaps I did, mayhaps I didn't.
Posting.
Oh, wait, I forgot to do this. It's been a while since I've streamed an episode where one of us isn't here, so I forgot that I can. Blam! Seamus is no longer here.
Oh, that's right.
So now you get a little bit
I guess I
extra,
should also
like, hand view right here. Hands.
That looks so weird
It's coming at
with the one
ya.
gap. But yeah, you can see that live recording over on our YouTube channel. And I just realized I didn't even mention that we are technically a book club for manga. And let's see, before I forget, I want to thank our coffee supporters. Just pulling up my list here. If you want to financially support us, buy us a coffee, head over to ko-fi.com/mangamac. And you can be a supporter like Philip, Mangamachu, Vicky Dalton, Lulu, A. Liz, 8E8, Chris from Canada, Duluid, Mia, Wyatt, Dr. Meltface, Poor Mexican 72, Liquidus 002, Xtine, Jen, Neptic, Shirley Bossy Cat, and Tama Gamer. Thank you all so much for supporting Manga Machinations. I really need to ask Dart to update that page so you can put it up on the feed.
Maybe for next week.
We're off next week. The jokes. Le jokes. Okay, next I have an email here. This email is from Idan who is Tama Gamer, and they sent us an email titled Most Under Recognized Influential Manga. Dear Manga Mac team, what's a manga series that most fans don't realize is far more influential than its popularity suggests? For me, the perfect example is Go Nagai's Devilman. A lot of fans know it, especially after Devilman Crybaby on Netflix.
Cryberry.
But I don't think most people grasp just how deeply it shaped modern manga and anime. From Clamps X to Neon Genesis Evangelion, and more recently Chainsaw Man, so many classics either wouldn't be the same or maybe wouldn't exist at all without Devilman's themes, tone, and narrative daring. Oh, and it also caused a BL boom. I'm curious, what other manga do you think fit that description? Which series don't get the credit they deserve for their impact on the industry? Thanks for all the great episodes, Tama Gamer. Well, thank you for the email, Tama Gamer.
It's a good one. It's a good question. I think Devilman is a. So I want to be clear. This is influential things that manga that are not recognized as influential in the West. I think we should clarify.
I was gonna ask because I feel like most of the ones that do get their recognition, they get them in Japan.
Yeah, I mean, Devilman is very famous in Japan. I would imagine even young people who don't necessarily read it or engage with it know what it is. But I do think that's a good example here because, I mean, I've said this before, but like Clamp got their start making Devilman BL doujinshi, so
I think an easy one here then is Doraemon.
mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah.
Worldwide,
manga
it's
heads
more
might know, but a lot of people don't.
And worldwide, but like in the US, not a lot of people know about Doraemon. But Doraemon is huge, and it was a lot of people's first manga because it's so kid friendly.
It's true. I frequently have to explain what Nobita mom is when people see my water bottle. Like, what is Nobita's mom? It's like, oh, you're asking what Nobita's mom is, and then I explain Doraemon.
As you flash it on screen, yeah.
And I go, like, push on my glasses.
Called him a poser. Fake fan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I forgot if it was this year or last year, but I talked about that Doraemon tribute manga or Fujiko F. Fujio tribute manga, where people like Inio Asano did their own Doraemon thing, and then they got to pick a favorite Fujiko Fujio manga chapter to present. It's a very cool book. And yeah, a lot of like people Inio Asano's age, like in their 40s, I would say, same as me, their first manga was Doraemon. I learned how to read Japanese by reading Doraemon when I was like 4 or 5. So yeah, big influence for I guess the problem here is in the West, children's manga is basically non-existent in so many ways.
Mm-hmm.
That mark is taken up by like Raina Telgemeier and like Dogman and all those like Scholastic Kids books that you buy in elementary school.
Yeah, I think in recent years we've had a few of the classic children's manga come out, like the Kirby manga and the Mario manga. But like, I don't know,
the Kirby manga.
I don't know if kids are actually buying that. Like, I think that's more like manga heads buying it, being like, "This is cool. This is like this is some manga interesting history."
And like Scholastic is they're collaborating with studios in Japan to make like the new Unico books, and there's gonna be a new Speed Racer also in collaboration with it's not Scholastic who's doing it. I can't remember which publisher it is. I think it's Abrams' new manga division. In collaboration with the Japanese creators and studios. So that's cool, but it's the original Speed Racer, right? It's not the original Unico that kids are really exposed to.
Mm-hmm. So children's manga, you have Doraemon, and then I guess we should like definitely mention a shoujo manga because that's like barely any shoujo manga comes over in the first place, and a lot of it was like more modern, like in the Tokyo Pop manga boom days of the early aughts. Some of the more classic ones were never like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say just about anything by the, I can never remember what year it is. The 49ers, that's what it is, the Showa 49 group. Um, Moto Hagio,
Yeah.
Ryoko Ikeda, any of those, like, Rosa Versailles,
Oh yeah.
um, those are ones that are available. There are several of them available now in English, but they're not super popular, and they took a long time for them to come over, whereas they were available in, like, French and Italian, and I think the French and Italian market may have a better sense of how much shoujo has had an impact on manga as a whole, because I would argue that these didn't just influence other shoujo manga, but, like, the landscape of manga.
Yeah.
Anything come to your mind, Darfox?
Um, Kazuo Mezu, but I think that's becoming a little bit more known now in the West, just because their references are so prolific. Um,
Right, because he was the one who inspired Junji Ito,
yeah, and Junji Ito
but
is so ubiquitous now.
in
I
the
think a lot
West
of
and
people are
across the
picking up
world.
on it now. Um, I think if it's a North Star, it's pretty well known, but that was like a huge cornerstone in like shonen manga and like the ultra violent stuff. Um, yeah, I can't really think of anything else um besides those two as far as just like unknown stuff.
My problem is I'm trying to separate all my knowledge of Japanese manga that
Right.
I know of,
Parse it
and
and
like,
filter it to like Western Western sensibilities or knowledge.
I mean, these days things like the underground, the Garo stuff, they are available. They're more niche, but I feel like they do get their flowers.
I think people know generally about like Gekika, and they might not know what Gekika is, and they might not know like how it influenced people, but they kind of recognize the art style of like that kind of like semi-realistic look, very manly, big eyebrows.
The Go
It's
Go 13, Duke Togo, yeah.
yeah, like I think people recognize that aesthetic, but they might not know how it was like like a movement at that time, and who actually worked on it, and what the actual works were and stuff like that.
We need to think of like in current manga, what are the classic things that people parody that are easily recognizable? I feel like Nobuyuki Fukumoto's Kaiji stuff. You know, if there's a
Hmm.
gambling sequence and they're making a joke, usually somebody will be drawn in Fukumoto style,
Right, yeah.
stuff like that, or like an obvious like reference to Doraemon or something. There's something in our main segment. There was a reference to One Piece, so. But One Piece is obviously like well known here in the West.
Oh, yeah, they don't everybody knows what that is.
Hmm. So yeah, I wish we had a couple more examples to give Tamagamer, but hopefully we answered your email. Thank you for sending that. Remember, you can send emails over to mangamachinations@gmail.com. Okay, let's move along to some what you been reading next. Okay, Morgana, you have anything for us this week?
I do actually.
Nice.
I read something. So I told you guys I was reading Land last week. I
Hmm.
finished reading Land. That's great. And the end of that made me it was the twist was not entirely unexpected, but it's a good one. So I'm looking forward to reading more of that. And that's all I'm going to say about Land.
Yeah, because we will definitely be reading that on this podcast next year.
Yes, yes. I also read. Now let me see if I can remember the title completely. This is also a yen book, so I'm going to preface this by saying I am I work in sales at Yen Press, but everything I say is my own opinion, does not reflect that of my employer necessarily. But I also read Neighborhood Craftsman, stories from Kanda's Gokuracho.
Oh, that one. Yes, yes, yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes. So it was great. I really liked it. It's a manga that explores crafts from the Edo period. Um, so handcraft, so like a cooper making, carpentry, like making barrels and things like that, working on buckets, but like woodworking. An indigo dyer, they follow a tatami mat, uh, what do you call them? Craftsman, person who makes tatami mats for floors. Um, and plasterers, I believe were the ones that were focused on. The plasterers was like several chapters. Many of the artisans featured are women, actually, which I was kind of surprised about. Um, this is definitely the kind of book I recommend if you like a bride story, partially because it's historical, but also because the art is really nice and it shows a lot of I mean, obviously artisan crafts, so there's a lot of really beautiful traditional crafts that you see, kind of like in the first volume of Bride Story, you see like the beautiful tapestries and the beautiful carpentry done so definitely if that tickles your fancy, I recommend this. I also think that Akihito Sakue, I believe is the creator's name. They do use a lot of really interesting angles to show off these craftsmen doing their work. So, like in the first one, the Cooper, she's making a barrel, and you get a view. She's holding the barrel between her feet, and you get the view from below where she's inside the barrel as she's kind of shaving off the inside of the barrel with the thing between her feet. So you see her face coming at you from the other side of it and her hands. So it's a really cool angle, and shows you really well what exactly she's doing. Um, Stuff like that that's just really cool. There's an indigo dyer, and you see her her hands are dark. They're like stained blue from the indigo dye, and you see her like dunking the fabric into the vats of indigo and like what that looks like. And it's so careful. Like you see her dip it in, and then you see her bring it out and then spread it, and you can just there's this the time is taken to show off what these crafts people are doing. So it's really cool. It was a really neat book, and one that was like I knew what it was about, but I knew I would like it, but it made me think about when you're making a story like this, how you really need to know what these crafts are. So you need to like do the research into that, and then also know what it looks like to make those crafts and then translate that. So I really liked it. I thought it was really cool. Um I highly recommend it. So
Yeah, I've read some of that because it's available in Japanese online on Torch. They did the Junichiro Saito's stuff. But yeah, I like it. I'm trying to figure out in my mind how we're gonna make Seamus read it
yeah,
because I don't think he'd like it actually.
it's not like it's a little slow, and there's like no drama. I mean, there's not, there's story there, and like the plasters kind of over several chapters had like a little bit of drama, but it wasn't like I mean, people ain't killing each other. Nobody's mad about anything. You know what I mean? It's not that kind of book. It's pretty nice. It's a nice read. It's cozy. Let's be real.
He might like the art, so
It is
possibly
good looking, yeah.
I will have to plan for this. But that's great, and I'm glad that's out. Also, I just checked the Yen website, and they're putting out Animan. Wow.
Yes, that just came out.
Yeah,
this
that's
week.
the. I talked about the Japanese version, Dobutsu Ningen. It's a very good horror series. So yeah, nice. Again, putting out some good stuff.
Yeah, I told you part of the reason I was reading these was I was catching up on some stuff in order to write my like end of year. I do a newsletter for librarians and retailers, and I wanted to list my favorite reads of the year. We had a really good slate of books come out this year. I mean, obviously, I think we publish good books. I work for the company, right? But we are leaning more into the kind of books I like personally. So, like, I was really excited for, Neighborhood Craftsman. I was really excited for Land. Um, Tamaki and Amane by Fumio Shinaga. We published that this year. It was awesome. Helena and Mr. Big Bad Wolf, we published back, I think, in February. That's a Taiwanese comic that's really excellent and took me by surprise in a really good way. So yeah, we did a Clam Bart book, which I talked about. We brought Dean Angel back into print, which is really exciting. So it's been a good year for Yen. I think it's been a good year for a lot of publishers in terms of content. I've been pretty excited about a lot of what's coming out. So what a time to be alive and be a manga fan.
Nice, nice, nice. Okay, anything else?
No, I don't think so. I was telling Dar off air earlier that we were watching Hogfather, which is a Discworld Christmas movie because I like Discworld. But that's like a different nerdy thing that we don't need to go into.
Okay, I'll go next because I have a connection to Morgana's Neighborhood Craftsman. It finally happened, everybody. What is that thing? The snake eating its own tail?
Ouroboros.
Yes, we are the Ouroboros. I found a manga about podcasting.
Uh-oh, it's getting meta in here. It's
Well,
like an Inception. Podcastception.
To be fair, there is podcasting, but that's not what the actual manga is about. So this manga is called We Are Connected. It just came out this week on Torch, which I just talked about, the website where Neighborhood Craftsman is, along with other like more alternative manga titles. Like Enchan's House is on here. So I know like a lot of titles that Glacier Bay Books likes. That's the kind of stuff that they publish. And they published half of this manga, We Are Connected, done by Naoto. And this manga is about 4 friends who met in college. We have Haru, Aoi, Eri, and Yu. And so what's happening is they're all coming over to Eri's place to record a podcast. They sit around a kotatsu, that heated coffee table, the Japanese coffee table that you put a blanket under that heats your feet. It's so nice in the winter. But they surround the coffee table. They have one standing mic and they record a podcast called We Are Connected. But here's the thing. It's clear that Eri has been getting hate emails from the haters. And she is concerned because usually they read emails and they answer them. And there's some kind of weird tension happening among the 4 of them as they record the podcast. The first chapter ends. There's only 4 chapters total. It's 164 pages. And I got to read half of it. But the first chapter ends with Eri going, whoops, guys, that didn't record. Fucking podcast nightmare, am I right, Darfox?
Yep.
There's nothing worse, Morgana. I don't think you've ever had to deal with this with us, but There's nothing worse than having to re-record an episode.
That would suck.
It sucks the life out of you. You don't want to have to talk about something because you already just talked about it. It's just a bad thing all around.
I don't think we ever did an episode, but we definitely did an intro or something like that, or maybe a segment, once or twice.
Okay, yeah, but I highly recommend if you are podcasting and like your episode does not like it disappears, do not immediately record it again. But anyway, jumping back to the story, by the halfway point of the story, it's clear that there was a fifth friend that is no longer talked about. And they're getting like Eri is getting she's the only one looking at the emails, and she's getting very specific hate email that she thinks is from maybe this fifth person. So even though this manga is about 4 people podcasting, it's more about the tension between these 4 friends, and like now it's like, what happened to their fifth friend? What is the drama that is occurring right here as we stepped into their world where, you know, they've had some podcasts under their belt and now they're getting that hate mail. So I think it's a pretty good concept for a manga about these friends podcasting. And I've never seen a manga about podcasting. This is the first.
There's got to be some. I mean, it's so popular, podcasting.
I don't know how popular it is in Japan. In Japan, what's really popular is the radio, actually. There's super popular, like, late night radio programming by comedians for comedy shows, and also, like, voice actors that have their own, like, talk shows and stuff like that.
That's kind of great. I like radio.
Yeah, the radio is still a thing in Japan. But podcasting itself, I'm not so sure. But yeah, I read this week and I wanted to talk about it because we're a manga podcast, and here's a manga about podcasting. We are connected by Naoto. I'll probably report back, Darfox, in the new year when I read the second half. They're going to post the rest by the end of the year.
Interesting.
Okay, I have one more manga I want to talk about, and that is Sangakuchojin Matsuoka, or Matsuoka the Incredible. Morgana, Darfox, do you remember a horror manga I talked about a lot called Monkey Peak?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
This was I described it as a horror movie that kept going and going and going, where a group of people who are climbing a mountain get assaulted by a huge monkey creature and start getting killed off one by one. And it just keeps going and going and going. There are 2 spin-off manga to that as well that were very good. And that was done by the author Koji Shinasaka and artist Akihiro Kumeta. They're back with their new manga, Matsuoka the Invincible. I just sent Darfox a link to the sample chapters. It's a manga put out by Nihon Bungeisha. And so we have Matsuoka. He's 65 years old, Morgana. And the manga starts by explaining there's a range of mountains in Japan from Nagano to Yamazaki called the Nanatsudake, or these that basically translates to 7 mountain range. And the first pages it says, here in these mountains there was something known as the Nanatsudake War, a bloody battle that filled the mountain with corpses for 3 months. And so what this story is, it starts out with a murder of a woman on the mountain. It looks like she fell to her death. Our main character, Matsuoka, was the one that recommended she go mountain climbing. And so he's very remorseful. But as he comes back at night for the wake, he finds her daughter has been killed and assaulted by a group of thugs who are looking for a USB stick. And Matsuoka snaps. He kills those fuckers. And actually, he lets one of them live and tells them, go back to your boss and tell them that I have this USB stick you're looking for. And I'll be waiting in the Nanatsuke Mountains. And so, this 65-year-old man, he is a excellent mountaineer. And now he is going to lure the criminals who killed this woman, assaulted the daughter and killed her. And of course, it's like the local police chief. He's involved. He's working with like the local Yakuza gang that has a hold on everything. So there's some kind of like criminal conspiracy that the woman who was killed uncovered. And now we get to watch Matsuoka fucking kill everybody on a mountain. I'm just amazed that Shinasaka and Kumeta were like, we had a hit with that mountain horror series. Let's just change it to mountain action. So now I'm expecting this to be like a prolonged like action movie that's just taking place in the mountains where like this 65-year-old awesome mountaineer man is just going to be hacking fools to death.
It's a very cinematic idea. Like it sounds like Rambo or Cliffhanger. It seems like a movie from like the 80s or early 90s.
I totally agree, Darfox. And if this creative team did such a good job with Monkey Peak, I know this is going to be an entertaining manga to read. First volume came out this year, and I got to read it, and it was that B-level action horror that I come to expect from these guys, and I'm probably going to enjoy this. It's just funny to me that they're like, yeah, we wrote that horror series on the mountain. Let's just go back there. And now the horror will be the 65-year-old man murdering all these asshole criminals and corrupt police men.
Yeah, right. What you know.
Right? What you know.
Invincible older men.
Mm-hmm. Matsuoka the Invincible, Sangaku Chojin Matsuoka by Koji Shinasaka and Akihiro Kumeta. And there you go. What else did I do this week? I watched the Fallout show, the new season. But I don't really need to talk about that.
I haven't seen that, but people like that show a lot.
Oh yeah. People like that show. It's pretty good. I'd say it's fairly faithful to the Fallout universe and like has a good tone. That absurdist like post-apocalyptic tone, but also has drama and stuff like that.
Retro futuristic.
I think the best parts they nail is the stuff in the vault, Narvox. I guess I'm talking about this now.
Yeah.
But yeah, in the Fallout TV show on Amazon, the best thing about it is the vault. Because it's just like, here's a situation where people have been living underground in vaults for very long, and say they got that 50s cheer, but it's like slightly sinister and fucked up things are happening on the surface. It's a good contrast to the adventures that are happening on the surface. That's all I'll say about that. Darfox, do you have anything this week?
I don't have any manga related stuff, but I have something that's equally as important. You are
Morgana,
now joining
brace
me
yourself.
into the world of 3D as I put the polarized glasses on the camera. That doesn't really work. Let's see. If I move it really, really fast, maybe it becomes 3D. All right, I'll stop. It's not really
You're
working.
already 3D, Dar.
What do you mean by that?
I guess not on like the stream, but you are a real person.
These glasses means that I went to go watch Avatar 3 Ash and Fire, I think is what it's
Oh,
called.
yes.
Yes.
The third installment in James Cameron's science fiction epic. This
Dar's the
movie.
biggest Avatar apologist. I swear to God.
And not an apologist. Just pretty good action sci-fi movies. With Avatar, there's a couple things you kind of have to buy into. You have to buy into a 3 hour long movie. Okay. Now,
Yeah, nope.
if you listen to this podcast, you might hear me talk about how I love 90-minute movies, right? And it's true. I do love 90-minute movies. But I would defend the Avatar movies in the sense that, like, there's two reasons why they're long. One reason is because they actually set up a bunch of stuff in the same film. They take the time to set up certain character um destinies, um and also it's like a big CGI love on, right? You're in the world of Pandora, and they're gonna show you all the mountain peaks. They're gonna show you the beautiful coral reef underneath the water. They're gonna show you the bioluminescent creatures who glow in the dark at night, and all this stuff. Like, the runtime of the Avatar movies are usually padded with at least 30 minutes of just like looking at, like, whoa, look at this alien world. So you have to buy into that. You have to be okay with that. um I will say though, Avatar 3 has the least world building of any of these movies. And I think that's one of the reasons some people aren't liking it that much. This movie is like all action and drama. It kind of feels like the climax to the second movie. It kind of feels like the 3 hour long climax to the previous movie, because it really is just like Avatar 1 is pretty self contained. It didn't need sequels. We got them, whether you asked for them or not. Um, and then Avatar 2, it feels a lot like a fresh start because it's so many years later, not just in production, but in the plot. He had, like, the main character has teenage sons now, and Avatar 2 takes so much time to introduce these. They're almost like the new main characters, his teenage sons. Um, and he has two boys, two girls, and then there's Spider, who's not like a biological son, but he kind of hangs out with his kids. So he's like the kid from down the street who invites himself to dinner. It's that kind of vibe, right? Um, so like part two took so much time to introduce these kids and kind of like show you what their personality was. Some more than others. Like one of them, I forget her name, but she's a really young girl. She doesn't really have much going on except that she's young and she says cute things sometimes. She's supposed to be like comic relief. Um, but the other kids, you kind of figure out which one's the fuck up, which one's like the one that makes his dad proud, and then stuff happens, right? um Avatar 3, after it set all that stuff up, it's just kind of like all action. It's kind of like people moving from point A to point B, shooting, fighting, killing, dying, getting captured, breaking free, holding people hostage, being held hostage. It's just constant action verbs, the movie. So I enjoyed it. I think some people like it less, but I really, really like the action. I mean, well, I think James Cameron does really, really good action in general. Um, his action's always like very clear and like very well like scripted in a way. It's like he has like anti shaky cam syndrome, right? Where he has like tons of wide shots and like establishing shots and very smooth camera movement, that kind of stuff. um the climax of this movie, maybe it's a little bit disappointing because it kind of just feels like a combination of the climax of part one and part two. um I won't go too much in details, but basically, like, there's a couple gimmicks and stuff from part one and part two, and they just kind of combine both of them into the climax of the third movie. So in that sense, it's a pretty predictable kind of finale. But I mean, it's cool. It's definitely like a spectacle, and as you can see, I bought into the spectacle because I never watched movies in 3D, but I watched the Avatar movies in 3D just because, like, those are like the one movies that really, really care about 3D, and it was cool. Like, it's like they do cool stuff with 3D. They don't do like the, oh my god, I'm reaching for you, and they kind of like trying to get up in the camera and stuff like that.
The knife flying at the screen at the audience.
Yeah, like slow motion. Somebody dodges, and then the thing goes to the. They do more stuff like um like bands of light like coming through like the forest and the trees, like sweeping across the camera, and they kind of sweep towards you. They do that stuff in the more subtle ways like that. Or if
I need
somebody,
audio listeners to know that Darfox is like fucking. He's on his webcam on the stream, and he's just like doing all these hand motions.
yeah, or
Oh, hi, Cliff. Cliff is in the chat.
yeah, he came at the perfect time. Or like when I want to get a prop, or like somebody standing like, oh, I'm talking, and then they get shot by an arrow from off screen, and then the arrow thing is like right up in your face as the person's dying, and you're like, oh
Oh
snap.
no, he has props now.
Yeah, and it's like oh, like it really does a good job of like in sort of ways sticking stuff in your face without making the people like look at the camera, which is like the very classic thing about like hokey sci-fi, or not hokey sci-fi, but hokey 3D stuff. Very classic. It's just a good time. I know Avatar is frequently made fun of, and I think it deserves a lot of the um derision. um just because the movies have really simple plot. So like most of the runtime isn't filled up with plot, it's filled up with like world building and pretty visuals. It is what it is. So um like I'm happy with it. I don't know what they're going to do with the sequels now, because I think the sequels, they're going to wait for the kids to grow up more, because it's going to be another time skip. Um, so like it's just kind of a crazy ambitious thing where like they're filming these movies along with like the actors aging, and it's kind of crazy.
Well, they filmed this one with the last movie, right?
Yeah, that's why they're so similar. It really feels like part two. It just feels like the conclusion to part two. And like part two set up some kind of like um dilemmas for characters, like, oh, what this character going to do? Is he going to choose this, or is he going to choose that? Part three like resolves all that. All of those kind of like things he left open in part two, they resolve all that. So part three kind of just feels like it's capping off the storyline for part two in a lot of ways. um but yeah, like it's a long emotional journey, but like it went by pretty quick for me. I really enjoyed it. It's just weird to kind of go into the movie theater before 7 o'clock and get out at 10:30. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're like, oh god, it is a long time.
Man. I just can't. That's too long.
Yeah, I mean, for some people, you're better off just waiting for it to become streaming and just become available that way. But I did want to mention one more thing, because Avatar is Avatar. But I did watch another movie. I've been watching a lot of movies recently. There is a movie called Eternity, um, with the actor who plays Scarlet Witch from the Marvel movies. I always forget her name. She's one of the Olsen sisters.
Oh, Elizabeth Olsen. yeah.
Elizabeth Olsen. She's in it. Eternity is basically kind of like a romantic comedy. You could tell it's like a smaller budget, because it's not quite a bottle movie, but it's a very limited sets. There's only a handful of sets in the whole movie. And you could tell it uses CG to kind of open up the landscape, because most of the sets are just small like hallways or balconies, and then everything in the background, the vista, is all created by CG and stuff like that. So it's kind of like a small production. But it was really, really enjoyable. The whole deal with Eternity is that this guy who's been married for like 30 40 years, he passes away. He wakes up in the afterlife, and he's no longer old. He's in his young body now. His happiest point in his life. You return to that body when you die. And then they start pitching him all of these afterlives, because in this world, when you die, you could choose what kind of afterlife you have. And it's almost like you're choosing like a resort, where there's like the beach eternity. You're on the beach for all eternity, or the train eternity. You're on a train for all eternity. Do you like trains? You could be on a train for the rest of eternity. But there's a little sinister to it, because they're like, when you choose an eternity, you're stuck with it for eternity. You cannot change your mind. You cannot switch. And you have like a week to choose, right? So he says, whoa, this is a lot, but where's my wife? And like, your wife is still alive. It's like, oh, well, I can't choose an eternity without my wife. Let me wait for my wife. And I won't go into super detail, but basically he waits for his wife. His wife also passes away within like the same week that he passed away, right? Um, and they meet in eternity. They're like, "Oh my god, like you're here! I'm so glad." And then another guy shows up and is like, "You're finally here." It turns out, the wife character, her old flame who died at war, waited for her for like 40, 50 years. Um, so now she has to choose who she's gonna spend eternity with. The man that she married and kind of had a happy life with, but he's very much kind of like a dopey regular guy, or like the fiery passion guy who they had like a very special, very intense love, but it was cut short because he died at war. Um, so like it becomes a competition where they both have to woo her, and she's obviously overwhelmed and she doesn't want to make it a competition. She, you know, like she loves both these people in different ways. Um, and it's just a really good kind of like what very well acted, like, you know, character comedy. One of the fun things about it is that even though they look young, they're still old because they died in like their 80s or 90 years old. So like they kind of talk like the old people the whole time. They kind of act like the old people too. So like I thought that was a very well done aspect of the movie. Um, but yeah, very, very different from Avatar because that one is, I think, was a nice short runtime. Um, and but it was really enjoyable. I don't know. That's the kind of movie I think comes out to like streaming and on demand kind of quicker. Um, but it's a good one if you want something kind of like simple and straightforward. There is a little bit of like emotional gut punches stuff into it. There is some sadness to it, but overall, it's just kind of like a fun character comedy.
I'm just surprised you brought it up here.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something else after talking about Avatar. But I felt dirty.
He
Like,
knows.
yeah, you know that you know who you are.
Yeah.
You know what you did.
You got to prove that you're not only that guy.
Yeah, I watched Avatar and I enjoyed it.
Well, okay then. That's going to be the end of our What You've Been Reading. Okay, before we get to our main segment, let's talk quickly about next week. No episode next week. It is our week off. We're going to enjoy our happy Christmas. But the week after is going to be the first episode of 2026. I say this as Dark keeps playing with like the 3D glasses on the screen. Yeah, and so Morgana is gonna enjoy her holidays, so she will take a break, and it will just be me and Darfox, which means it's not time for a new chapter check-in. Darfox and I both kind of feel that episode type is kind of dead now. There's no like ongoing like manga series that we're both really passionate about, so
Maybe 2026 it might revive. We'll see. But right now, not really.
I mean, there's some things to talk about Chainsaw Man, but that's really about it. We can't make a full episode out of that. So instead, we'll be doing a Darfox Dabbles. It's time to go back to the well of Manga Plus titles, and let me tell you, now that they've added Young Jump titles to the mix, we have quite a decent selection to choose from. So I will be mulling over that, and I'll send over Dara a list to check out each of the first chapters of some of these. And yeah, we'll talk about it on a Darfox Dabbles in 2 weeks. Please look forward to that. Okay, everybody, we're going to turn the stream down for a quick break. And when we come back, it will be time to do a triple dip on Manga Mavericks books. Stay tuned. Okay, everybody, we are back. It's time for our main segment, a triple dip on Manga Mavericks books. So yes, earlier this year, the Manga Mavericks podcast, they announced that they were going to get into manga publishing. Super exciting stuff. And basically, the dream, Dar.
I said, what? That's what I said.
Yeah, they're working with different partners like Strict Algorithm and Red String Manga. And they started off by putting out 6 books, 3 from the Manga Mavericks team and 3 from Red String Manga. Oh shoot, I had them up. Hold on. Yes, there was Bonds, Alternative, Zikogu's 4-Man, Now No One Lurks Beneath the Snow, Senpai no Kohai, and The Murderer and Her Runaway Desire. We got contacted by Lum earlier this year, back in July, asking if we wanted to get some press copies and maybe cover it on the podcast. I said yes. And then I'm so sorry, Lum, that it took us so long, but we were finally doing it. So we're going to do a triple dip style. So we picked 3 of the 6. And we will be looking at Alternative from Manga Mavericks books, and Senpai no Kohai, and The Murderer and Her Runaway Desire from Red String Manga. So let's see. Morgana, I'm going to let you pick the order. Which of these titles shall we talk about first?
Oh, well, I read The Murderer and Her Runaway Desire first, so let's do that.
Same.
Okay. So we have The Murderer and Her Runaway Desire, a manga by Aniedo. And this is a doujinshi adult release. So I need to give a content warning at the beginning of this. Just like at the beginning of this book, they have a content warning. This book contains scenes of sexual, psychological, and physical violence. So content warning for sexual violence, sexual assault, sexual psychological trauma. And like I said, this is a release from Red String Manga. For localization, we have translator Tusk, lettering done by Red. Let me read the copy over on the Manga Mavericks store website. At a certain school, students are being killed one after another. The culprit is the teacher. The other students are completely unaware. Only, quote, Desire knows the teacher is the murderer. In order to protect her secret, the teacher surrenders her body to, quote, Desire. Although, quote, Desire is mercilessly brutal, her cunning words and, quote, cunning actions push the teacher towards hedonism. So this was a Kickstarter success for Aniedo, a cursed Yuri story. And yeah, this book was my choice. I picked this one out of the 6.
How do you feel about that choice, Dakazu?
I'm happy with it because I mean, we'll talk in depth about the 3 books we picked, but we'll speak in general about like the other 6 because I did read all of them. I kind of feel like out of the 6 books, this is the one where the most stuff is happening. And also that out of the 3 that we read for this podcast, it also is maybe the it has like the highest points and the lowest points. Is how I'll describe it.
Interesting.
You think so?
Interesting.
I mean, I guess like my first thoughts about it is that I do like the art, though. I got some flashbacks to Dick Fight Island, Morgana, because yeah, this is an adult title, so there's a lot of female bodies here because this is a Yuri story, and some of the anatomy is not quite correct sometimes. It's a little off. And so I think out of the 3 manga for this podcast, this was the one that had some of the most flaws I noticed in the art. But and it's not subtle at all, right? Like the character is the sensei, the teacher. And then she's being like manipulated by this character named Desire. Literally her desire. While trying to save the other character, Sorrow. And the entire story is the teacher in this school has been killing off different students because the government has told her she must. What were the other ones? They had hope, anger, guilt. Yeah. So like it's very literal in the sense, and even in the afterword, Anieto says that this doesn't take place in reality. This takes place like in like a mind palace that is represented by a school. And the teacher is the main character, like having to kill off all their emotions, literally, as they become an adult. And so yeah, it's blunt. There is some definitely some stuff happening on the page that is extreme. And well, there is still stuff happening, Morgana, so I enjoyed that something was happening,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do think like the concept was really interesting of this like this adult who needs to kill their emotions in order to be accepted in society. I like that theme or that outset. Um and I do think the art was overall nice. So, yes, there are definitely some I mean anything that has like explicit sex, especially if it's supposed to be sexy, is going to be a little bit weird, I think, just to make it the most so you can see the most, right? As I think kind of the point. And I think that's the thing about it that I didn't like as much was like the concept was really interesting, but it also felt like an excuse to draw porn. And
That's what it is.
right. And that's fine, I guess, but like that's not what really gets me interested, I suppose. I don't think it was bad. Like I think for what it is it's good. Um I think that does it's just not entirely my speed. I mean, you're right that it was very obvious that this was I mean, it was very literal, but I do kind of wish the theme of killing off your emotions was taken a little further in a way. Like we don't know anything about this teacher, like who she is, what she likes, her personal life. We just know that she's killing off her emotions. I kind of wanted a little bit more background or like why is this so important? Why are we killing off these specific emotions? Why are we letting these ones go, you know?
Yeah, I get that, but also I don't think that's the focus of like this creative
No,
work.
definitely not. And I get that. And that's, but I think for me that's more of what I wanted out of it.
Totally get it. Darfox, what did you think about this book?
I'm a little conflicted because, like you said, it's very on the nose. But I'm a Kojima fan, so I have no ground to stand on because he names his characters Die Hard Men because it's hard because they never die. He names his character Heartman because he has an enlarged heart. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like, but like for me, the thing that I got kind of hung up on was the part that I'm kind of conflicted about is that at a certain point. at one point I kind of dislike that I had to read um the extra thing to kind of have a better appreciation of it, but at the same time, I get it a little better now why the story is that way, because they talked about their own experience in school and how miserable they were in school. So this is the teacher in a lot of ways is kind of like a self insert for the author, and kind of their struggles of just having to conform to this environment and stuff like that. Um, I'm conflicted in the sense that like I will at some point I don't feel like that's necessary to tell us because like we said, it's pretty straightforward. But I do admit that I'm swayed a little bit by the author's, situation by reading their own words. So I don't know if that's a criticism or not, but that's just a reality of kind of how I felt while I was reading it, where I was like, yeah, whatever, as I was reading it. And when I read the afterward, I was like, okay, now I feel a little bad about it. It's like I can see more of the emotion and, genuine creativity in retrospect. Um, that that's kind of all I feel about it. I do think the art's nice. I I almost ignored all the like sex stuff. I hope they weren't dropping a lot of plot bombs during the sex stuff because I was kind of scrolling past it.
No.
Yeah, yeah, okay, yeah. That's what I was expecting. So I was just kind of scrolling past it, and and it's a thing with doujinshi where just like I'm not like super experienced reading like porn doujinshis, but like they do have a lot of plot in them sometimes. Um, so it's just one of those weird things where it's just like this is to get your rocks off, but I'm still gonna put a lot of plot and emotion in it. Um, yeah. Um, I will show my hand and say this is like my least favorite of the three that we read. Um, just because I had the least to kind of grab onto. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. I guess to kind of sum up my thoughts about it, it's interesting in retrospect. After I finished it and I read the afterward, I wish it was interesting as I was actually reading it.
Okay, you
As
brought up a good point, Dar, about the doujinshi stuff.
Mhm.
So you said yourself you don't have a lot of experience reading erotic doujinshi, but do you
Yeah,
have experience reading doujinshi in general?
a little bit more, but like not a lot. I'm mostly a commercial manga Andy, you know.
Right. Morgana, I know you have read a fair bit of doujinshi yourself.
A little bit here and there, mostly fan stuff.
Okay, so maybe Morgana can like talk with me here, but I kind of get the feel from like the many doujinshi that I've read, especially comparing them to commercial manga, as you said, Darfox, that you read. Because doujinshi are generally like fan art, I feel like what you get in the product here, in the book, in these works, is much more of like what the author wants to draw and write.
Oh, sure.
Obviously, there's not like a publisher editorial team, you know, telling you, oh, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Because, this is doujinshi are mostly self published works. And you get to just do what you want. So when I read this Murderer and Her Runaway Desire, I was just like, I am interpreting all of what Anieto wanted to put on the page, for good and for bad. And so, like, you talked about how, like, you had to read the afterword to kind of, like, get the feelings and everything, right? That definitely does add something for me, but in general, I don't even, like, worry too much about that. Like, it does explain like what is happening with the plot and the character a little bit more. But I'm just like seeing like, oh, I bet Anieto just wanted to draw this scene. Or they wanted to draw out this story. Or this is how they wanted to represent everything. Like this is just like all what's that part of your is it id
Id.
Yeah.
in your brain? Yeah, I feel like Jojinshi are so much uh manga artists id.
It's It's almost like stream of consciousness. Like this is I saw this in my head and now it is here on the paper.
Yes. And because all 6 works that we got from Manga Mavericks books that they're putting out, they are doujinshi. I felt like the id from every creator. And I feel like this is just my observation personally, but when you have that, then yeah, you lack things like Morgana, you wanted like more explanation about the character and the teacher, why she's there. Or Darfox, you wanted to like have more of an understanding before you had to read the afterward. I feel like those things that like you would do in, doing your edits, that process or that part is like mostly skipped.
So it's a first draft, basically. It's
Yeah,
the first
that's
thoughts.
kind of how I look at all of these 6 books. And so like I think doujinshi will really connect with people if it's like, oh yeah, this is my jam. This is what I want to read. It will really work for them, but if it doesn't, then it really doesn't. Because commercial manga is kind of designed almost by committee to make sure it appeals to like most people. And I find with doujinshi works, you have a lot more like jagged niche pieces and works that just aren't for everybody.
Yeah. I think my ideal would be a work that is very personal, but that also has a little bit of editorial touch. So I'm not saying like super polished Shonen Jump stuff, but like this taken a little bit further and developed a little bit more because I mean, this is what it is, and it's fine as it is. But again, I think there's an interesting concept here, and I would be curious to explore it more in depth. I could do without the, you know, sex and manipulation. Well, the manipulation I think has to kind of come with it, but like it's pretty graphic. And so that kind of cuts out a large part of the audience, which is fine. There's it's an audience. This is for an audience that wants explicit material, obviously, and wants to link that with kind of a psychological state. Um and I could see it being really interesting if it was taken. I mean, it is interesting, but I could see if it was taken just a little further. What can we get from this? And this is like we're not going to get that and that's fine. I think this is good as it is. Um if this is the kind of thing you're looking for. But definitely the warnings are there for a reason. It's uncomfortable a little bit. I It's not the kind of explicit work that I particularly enjoy reading. It doesn't look like anybody's happy at any point.
No, it kind of lives in that yandere like niche and genre. Actually, like the Japanese title on the cover is Yandere Ojo-sama, so like it's right there in the title too in Japanese. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention about this book is this is something I noticed kind of throughout uh the red string manga titles, the 3 that we had. But it just wasn't my personal preference of translation and kind of lettering for this. More so in this book than the other one that we're going to talk about, Senpai no Kohai. Just some choices that they tend to make for translation, like they do use teacher, but they also use sensei. And Morgana, I think you were on the episode where we talked about Sensei's Pious Lie, right? I think Darfox was out
Mhm.
for that. We had discussed like maybe there's a reason they didn't go with sensei for I mean why they went with sensei in that book in the title instead of teacher, because possibly they didn't want like a commercial work talking about a teacher, being in such a salacious like fictional work. But here in The Murderer and Her Runaway Desire, and also later in Senpai no Kohai, there's kind of like a looseness with like the translation where sensei and teacher is like interchanged. And I tend to like prefer the translations that are done in a way where if this is someone's first manga title, I mean, God, if this is someone's first manga title, but
Yeah, I don't know that I'd recommend that for a first
right,
go round.
but if it is someone's first manga title, like I prefer translations that work in a way where you don't need the prior knowledge, right? Like manga heads, they know what senpai kohai is, they know what sensei means, but like I always like to read things where it's assumed that you don't have any prior knowledge of what you're reading.
So either they translate those or they give you a definition so that they can
Yeah,
do it,
because
right? Yeah.
Darfox, I think Ryan Scott said this for video game stuff, but he was like, don't ever like write with acronyms like FPS or RTS because
Right.
you know what if it's someone's first time like reading that, they won't know that means first person shooter or real time strategy game.
Yeah, it's too inside baseball, right? Like you're getting
Yeah,
too niche. So you're closing off your audience even more. And I would say again, with this title in particular, you have a pretty niche audience. But
yeah. So I think it's fine for this one.
in general, if you want to reach a broader audience, it is good to respectfully handhold a little bit.
Yes. I don't think it's a bad thing for this title. It's just something I noticed with the Red String manga titles that we had, and I wanted to bring up. What else was there? Oh, really? Very specific Dakazu thing. This place takes into school, right? And there's a couple scenes that takes place in the nurse's office. This is a total like Dakazu pet peeve thing. But I hate seeing that translated as nurse's office. The reason? I worked in education a long time, and we don't fucking call it a nurse's office anymore. That's not what it's called in schools.
Oh, really? What do you call it?
It's the health office.
Oh,
In a lot of cases, they don't say the school nurse either. It's like the health aide.
very interesting. I had no idea.
I feel like for our age, Morgana, like that is what it was called when we were growing up and going to school.
Yeah, it was the nurse.
Yeah.
And it was always inevitably a woman. Like I don't think I ever had a male nurse, though obviously they exist.
Yeah. Just a Dakazu pet peeve that I want to bring up. The other one that always gets me is if you ever see pudding in Japanese, it's not fucking pudding. That one drives me insane. It's flan. It is caramel flan in Japan. When they call it pudding, they're talking about caramel flan. But it always gets translated. You want some pudding? It's like, it's not fucking pudding.
Well, a lot of times it's like in a pudding-like package.
Oh, yeah, in the cup, right?
Yeah.
But no, it's caramel flan.
Yeah.
You get a Japanese person who comes here, they go to a supermarket, and they're like, oh, pudding! And they eat that, they're going to be like, what the fuck is this? Even if it's a custard one.
And
Sorry.
let's not talk about how in the UK pudding is just dessert.
Oh, right. Yeah.
It's a very broad term, right?
Okay. Dakazu pet peeve ran over. Is there anything else you guys want to say about The Murderer and a Runaway Desire?
Not really. I think it's interesting. But
It's an intense one to start with, for sure.
Mhm.
yeah.
An intense one to have in your initial lineup. But I do think a lot of people were excited about it too. I do remember seeing some. I mean, I think I saw some excitement about there being more Yuri titles in general, for sure.
It's it's good to have a variety. One extreme option, Would I recommend this? I think it depends. You got to be okay with this kind of book. You really got to be okay with reading something like this.
Yeah, my recommendation is gonna come with so many questions first about what you're looking for in a book.
If somebody says they want something like sexual and aggressive with a little bit of violence and it's all metaphorical, I might recommend this one.
So specific.
But it is. That's what this book is. It's very specific.
Also, you gotta be okay with just playing with the imagery of teacher-student sex.
Yes, that's
That's
a
like
good
the
point.
least like problematic thing that's happening here.
It's not literally happening, but it's literally depicted.
Yes, yeah, that's a fair point. There is the implication of a student manipulating their teacher, which is
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know if we should give teenagers that much power. I don't think we should think that they have that kind of power over adults. But but as you're saying, this is not literal. This is this is all a figment of this person's psyche.
Psychological battle with
Yeah.
maintaining their identity and emotions or something along those lines.
See, it's funny to me. It's like the point. This book opens with like the teacher killing a student, and I was like, okay. And then she's smoking like on the roof or something. I'm like, this isn't real. So to me, like I did not make
Wait.
any like realistic connection.
And
The
somehow
smoking is the part that makes it unreal.
I mean, that happens at the beginning. And then also their names being Desire and Sorrow, you know.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
the shoe dropping for sure, but somehow the teacher murdering her student right off the bat is not the thing that disturbed me the most about this book. Just
Oh.
like stab right away.
There is one thing I wanted to mention. In a kind of like typical doujinshi fashion that I've seen before, this book just ends. It just ends. That final page, it's just like kind of an end.
So what happens when you don't have an editor, man?
Yeah, it's interesting. You know how I talked about the manga done by the Spanish manga author? He did a Matagi Gunner. What is it? Let me look it up real quick. A Mangaka's Road to Japan.
Oh, yes, yes.
So this week they just put out a new chapter of that, and it was all about how like he was trying to get the first chapter ready, and he got so many corrections on everything from the editors that he just had to complain. It's like, what is going on? Why am I getting so many like corrections? And the editors are explaining, you know, this is going to be featured in a manga magazine, and we want the first chapter to be as good as possible because that is your one and only chance to make an impression on the reader that, you know, this is a manga that's worth following, that's worth watching. And that's why like they're so strict about like their editorial when it comes to the first chapter. Like, this has to be right, this has to be right, this has to make sense. And I kind of thought that about like these books too. Like, they're doujinshi, so like as I mentioned, it's more about like what the mangaka wants to put on the page. They wanted to make this story, but then like this is my first impression of all these titles, right? And these creators, I guess. What was it? Aniedo had the other book as well. Oh my god! I keep closing the stupid catalog. 1 second. We also received Now No One Lurks Beneath the Snow, which is that was the historical Yuri title. Did you take a look at that, Morgana?
I didn't. I did not get a chance to look at that one.
It was a sweeter story, you know, not a dark one like this one.
Yeah, I'd be curious to check it out. I do think like we were saying, I think the art's really nice. I think the concept's really interesting for this one. So I'd try something else by this author for sure.
Yeah, so that's my thing is like for some of these books, just like based on these titles that I read, I was not captured by my first impressions for these creators. And that's kind of like a little bit of a disappointing thing when you're looking at their doujinshi work. Like maybe they have commercial work. I didn't actually research. I'm sorry. Maybe they have other titles that might be more for me. But this was my first impression of like many of these creators, right?
I will
And
say, sorry, to kind of counter that though, I think it's really cool that we have this available in English and it's not like a super polished editorial work. Um, it's kind of a fun glimpse into kind of a different part of manga culture that we don't get to see in the US a whole lot. So to that end, I think I really like that this kind of thing is available, that we have some more I don't know, niche,
variety.
yeah, variety and niche works, things that, because I do think you can find good things about these books, and yes, I mean, maybe if they were a little tighter, a little bit more, um, just maybe if they had more of a, I don't want to call them commercial or more edited, but like a little bit more polish on them, they might appeal to a broader audience or draw in more readers. But I think there is something valuable about having these kind of artistic experiments, also almost like here is a work, here's a thing I made with no other just a story I wanted to tell. And I do think that there's a place for that in storytelling, in manga, in professional works. I do often want to see the weird things that people make just because they want to.
I totally get that, Morgana. I think unfortunately for me, like the titles we received, not many of them like seemed like they were going weird enough for me to like have an interest, maybe.
Mm.
But yeah, let's keep talking about that as we move along. Morgana, what do you want to talk about next?
I read Alternative next, so, and that was the one I think of the whole group when we were glancing through them initially and we're trying to pick ones to read. That was the one I was like, "Oh, this looks like fun." So that was my first impression of it before reading it.
Okay, let's talk about Alternative. This is put out by Manga Mavericks Books, and it is done by Chiaki Yagura. Let me just pull up the localization. We have translation by Michael Joko, lettering by Victoria Esnard, editing Mike Davis and Joshua Martin Corrales, quality assurance Siddhartha Gupta and Colton Solm. Let me read the copy over on their website. The good die young. There's a whole movement of entertainers who by 27 years old had left their mark on the world, including my God. At 28, what have I done? Am I worthy to stand on the same stage? Why does my gospel stay unwritten? And so, yes, this is a story about a woman who is 28. I believe her name is Rio. And this is a shorter doujinshi. So, what was it, like 42 pages? Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's just a simple story about how she's turned 28. She's at that point in life where she has a regular job, but she has no passion for it. She wants to create like a song that will mean something. Meanwhile, her friend Kay won a novelist award, and he's also facing his own like dilemma about having expectations now and not. He doesn't know what to write anymore. And the story ends in kind of a dream sequence where she's jamming out on a stage and all these questions she has about like Is her life going the right way? It's what am I? She tells them to shut the hell up, and then there's multiple 2-page threads of her chucking her guitar and exploding, and then she wakes up from a dream, and then she's like, I wrote a song. And that's it. That's the story. This was Darfox's pick?
Mine. I picked.
Oh, this was yours pick, Morgana. Okay.
I picked two, and you picked the other one, and Darfox was like, "Yeah, I'll read whatever."
I did like this one. Yeah, cool.
Okay, let's start out with you, Morgana. What do you think of Alternative?
I liked it. So, the story itself is not like groundbreaking thought. I feel like, you know, the god she's referring to is Kurt Cobain. It's very obvious. And the 27 Club, all these creative people, I think they're all musicians who died at 27, um, died young after leaving a huge impression, right?
Question:
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did they all unalive themselves, or did they die of very
No.
Many of them did, but
Well,
overdose, stuff like
drug
that.
overdose, yeah.
Mhm.
Amy Winehouse is one of them.
Yep.
Okay. So a lot of substance abuse.
Jimi Hendrix, yeah, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain.
But not all of them like a firearm to the face kind of situation.
No,
Okay.
yeah, and that's part of it too. Is like they all died out of self-destructive behaviors, one way or another, right? And that's not a criticism of these artists. I like them all, actually. I do think they're all very talented. What strikes me always about the 27 Club is like all that wasted potential. Because if they were that good at that young, what could they have done later? Um, I don't really get with the live fast, die young mentality. I'm like, you should live as long as possible and fuck them all. But anyway, that's beside the point. Um, this idea of feeling like you're artistically stuck and you look up to these people who were achieving great things when they were younger than you is totally relatable and not exactly like a new idea in terms of story. But I will say I enjoyed this, and I think some of that is the artwork. I particularly liked the scenes where she's chucking her guitar because those were visually really cool. It was a little, we got PDFs, and so we're reading kind of in a vertical scroll format, so you couldn't see the full spread the way I think it was intended to be read. But I could see that very cool, and what I did enjoy that. I think there's a lot of movement in these drawings, they're very kinetic. So, I think for me, the high part of this manga was definitely the artwork, and this also felt this also felt very personal, like, this is what the author also is feeling and is expressing it through music instead of through art, but I think everybody can kind of relate to feeling like they have not accomplished all they set out to accomplish.
Yeah, Morgan, I feel like I'm basically the same as you. I thought the art was good. The story is something I've seen so many times before, so it really didn't do anything for me. Plus, it's short, so it doesn't have a lot of time to expand on that story either.
I think the brevity's good though. It's kind of I wouldn't want to draw out this like, why can't I be like Kurt Cobain, like self-pity fest. I kind of like there was like oh, I got my inspiration, you know what I mean? Like, and then we end it. I kind of like that it stops with that. We don't need to push further. We got through this problem. We're done.
What about you, Dar? What do you think about Alternative?
I liked it. I felt like it was, it was short, but it was just kind of like a nice flash of, um, like inspiration and some romanticism as well. Like I feel like the biggest issue I have with it is just kind of like a personal issue. It's like a manga mac issue. The biggest issue I have with it is that like these young creators' obsession with like creating something great when they should just be creating.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of feels like what we talked about in the sports manga, where like how like these young athletes are obsessed with this sport as if it's the most important thing in the world, when really it's just an after school activity. You know what I'm saying? It's like very few manga have that perspective. Like ping pong is one of the few ones that kind of like touch upon that, where like ping pong is just one thing that they did throughout their life, and it's not really like the most important thing ever. Maybe at certain points some characters thought it was, but it really wasn't, right? And that's one of the reasons I think that we kind of liked ping pong in the long run. Almost all sports manga take the tact of like, this is the most important thing ever, and I would die if I lose. Um, which obviously they're trying to make an interesting book and create drama, right? But
Yeah.
like, there's a little bit of that romanticism becomes a little toxic, I feel like sometimes, and this book I feel like has that, right? And it's short, so it's not that big a deal. It's kind of there and it's gone, right? Um, but it's like this guy had like a pretty successful first story, and basically describing some sort of sophomore slump that he's having. And you're talking about how like, oh, my first story might end up being my last story because I can't really think of anything. And I'm like, that's not really like a terrible thing though. As long as you find something else that like you want to do and it's gonna be fulfilling to you, you know?
Yeah, and even Rio was like, I can't ever be in the 27 club because I haven't done anything. And I'm like, you don't want to be. They're dead.
Yeah,
Like it's not actually a good thing to die before at the peak of your artistic career. Like there is more to life, definitely. Um I'm guessing here, but I'm wondering how old the author is. I'm guessing younger than me.
They did this work when they were 28. It
Well, there
says
you
in the
go.
afterword.
So it is very personal, I think.
and also like I think it was Tatsui Fujimoto that said like, if you want to make good manga, you need a lot of input to make output. So you need to watch movies, read books, listen to music, do stuff. You can't just create stuff out of thin air. And Kojima said something similarly, where it's like, if you want to become a good game designer, go meet people, talk to people, learn something, learn a craft, work a job. It's like creativity. It doesn't come from a dream you had. Well, it might, but the
But it doesn't
dream
happen in a
the
vacuum.
dream you had was probably influenced by a lot of stuff in your brain. Um, you know, and in that sense, it's I feel like the story of alternative is like one aspect of creativity and success, and it's not very holistic. Which is fine. It is very short. But I can't help but think about that and talk about that after reading alternative. It's just like it's kind of it has a very narrow view of things. Um, but maybe you could argue that the character had a very very narrow view of things, and maybe the author did at the time, and that's why it is the way it is. Um, but yeah, it's cool. I liked it, especially that sequence that was like multiple page spreads. It was really well done. Um, but I can't help but think about that.
I bet that was cathartic to draw those big, like, guitar smashing scenes. Like, it's supposed to be catharsis for the character, but they're also just so um visually loud that I bet there was something really satisfying about putting those on paper too.
Definitely.
So are you two ready?
Uh-oh, here we go.
This is music manga.
Yeah, I was waiting for this. What do you think, Dakazu?
Let's see which page it is. I believe it is page. Oh, there's not a marker on here. Uh, there's a scene after we see her go to work. She comes home and she's sitting in front of her computer with her guitar. And there's one panel there of music where she has scribbled out like a chord sequence. Did I go check that chord sequence? You know 100% I did.
Yes, you did.
And let me tell you, that chord sequence is okay.
Hey.
I mean, in this case, it's like you either have it right or wrong. Like whether the chord sequence sounds good to somebody, that's more subjective. But the fact that it was not any kind of bullshit that was written on like what is supposed to be like her like songwriting, it was all correct. So that's great. You know, Chiaki Yagura, you have a better understanding of music than Asumiko Nakamura, so congratulations. Am I the only person who listened to the playlist that was at the end of this? Did any of you listen to that?
I did not listen to it. I mean, I know Nirvana, but I did not listen to the rest of it. There were other bands on there that I was not as familiar with.
Mm-hmm. I listened to it. They're all alternative rock. I think besides the Nirvana one, they were more like a little bit more poppy for my taste in alternative rock. But I can see what kind of sound that they wanted or that they were feeling for like this book. And it's fine. Music taste is subjective. But yeah, besides that fact that I got to check some more music things to see if they were correct and listen to some music at the end, this book is actually probably at the bottom of the three for me personally.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not exactly what I expected, but interesting.
I just think it's because despite the artwork maybe being the best out of the three, just like the story and the subject matter is like, it's just like so like meh to me personally. I've seen so many versions of this. Because this is a short book, I don't know what else we should talk about. Like maybe the K character, the friend novelist.
I don't envy K because I do feel like having a success is a little stressful. Like Dar was right. It's okay if you don't write another book, but like you do feel the pressure to do something. When you've done something good, you feel the pressure to do another good thing, and it's like, geez, you know.
I mean, it's true though. Everyone like judges people's second work, and they call it the sophomore slump, and that's a very real thing.
Well,
So
what I was hung up on is the fact that they didn't have any ideas. You know, it's one thing if they're like I have an idea, but it's really different from the first one, and I'm afraid they might not like it because people love the first one. This kind of goes against that. It was like,
well,
yeah,
for the sake of the story, he needed to have nothing, because then Rio is like, well, at least you made one thing, right? I think that's why that was purposely made that way. Even though you're totally right, Dar, you know, people should have like some ideas. At least that was my take on it. But is there anything else to say about Alternative before we move along?
I don't think so.
Okay, then let us move along to our final book, Senpai no Kohai. So this is another book done by Red String Manga. It is written by Hanakage Alt. For localization, we have Red String translations, English translation Tsusk, and Mei Amaki, and English lettering Red. Let me read the copy. One day, on her way to work, Sayuri Terazono suddenly spots an all too familiar back in the crowd of people before her. Though many years had passed since she saw Risa, there's no way Sayuri would be able to forget her precious Kohai. After all, Risa wasn't just any Kohai for Sayuri. She was special. But there's no way Risa would remember her after all this time, right? So yeah, we have a character named Sayuri, and she is coming into work and sees her Kohai, her underclassman at university, that she was attracted to, but nothing really happened. And now they're working together. And they've reconnected. And it turns out the Kohai likes her. And it's just like a story about some Yuri love between a senpai and a Kohai. Let's start out with Darfox for this one. This was not technically your choice, but you were okay with doing this because Morgana wanted to read this one too.
I was A-okay with it.
What did you think about Senpai no Kohai?
I think this is my favorite one. It's very simple. It's very simple and sweet. But one of the things that I really liked about it was kind of seeing the contrast between the first two chapters and the third chapter, because the third chapter wasn't afterwards. And I do really feel like I saw like a big level up um of art and kind of style between the first two and the three. There was just like way more density in the third chapter and stuff like that. Um, so that really stood out to me. I like seeing that evolution. Um, and I mean, like, and I think you know, even though it's a girl's love story, um, just the kind of the nature of the unrequited, well, I don't know if unrequited, but like, like the crush you don't approach and you just kind of like watch from afar. Like those stories are like really universal, and it's really hard to like, or really easy to put yourself um in the senpai's like shoes. And then um the revelation that the Kohai liked her too is it's sweet. It's you gotta be okay with just like a sweet, nice manga.
Yeah. What about you, Morgana?
I also liked this for many of the reasons Star Fox already explained. It is a little bit simple and a little sappy, but I don't mind that. And I think one of the things I actually really like about it, and this is going to be weird, I guess, but it reminds me of the BL that was coming over into English in the early 2000s, which is kind of like a lot of it was this very simple, like, oh, I have a crush on this person. And then you find out that they like, arrange their entire life in order to be with you. Like in this one, Risa, studied the industry so that she could get a job and work with her senpai because she's in love with her. That feels like a very BL plot from like 2002, which
Yeah.
is a compliment. I mean, like that's not a bad thing because for me it was kind of nostalgic, and I think that a lot of the Yuri we've had available in English up until this point, a large portion of it has been intended kind of more for the male gaze. I feel a little bit more like high school girls, sort of having a, you know, I don't know. There's always the Yuri historically has this kind of this romance is a phase sort of air about it some of the time. We've gotten a lot of really good Yuri recently and stuff that I am interested in as a person who is interested in women. Um, but I don't feel like we've had the breadth of stories that we've had with BL because we've been publishing BL in English for a lot longer than Yuri, right? So I think for that reason, I also this really also spoke to me because it reminded me of a whole bunch of stuff that like DMP was publishing a million years ago, in a good way. So it's fun, it's sweet, it's something that I could recommend to anybody who's looking to get into Yuri and doesn't necessarily want something really salacious. There's some, like, there's, like, a little bit of sexy times, but it's nothing really graphic. Um, so I would feel comfortable handing this to, like, an older teenager up through an adult. Um, so I think this is a really good kind of, ambassador for Yuri manga, you know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna get into it, this might not be a terrible place to start because it's really we've got adult women in a real relationship. There is some, like, talk about Sayuri is a lesbian. She has always, throughout the whole thing, she's attracted to women. There's a scene where she's sleeping with another woman who's not related to Risa. It's not graphic, but it's implied. Um, and she has misgivings about Risa because she's like, "Are you making fun of me? Like I don't want you to play with my heart if you're not actually interested in me because being a lesbian is not like necessarily easy for me." Like it ruined her relationship with her family. So being out is not exactly easy for her. Um so it touched on that without getting really deep into it, but it never was like, "Oh, I'm gay for you," you know what I mean? Sort of thing. Though I guess Risa's kind of they never said outright that she's bisexual. Um, but I've chosen to read her that way. So yeah, I like it. I think it's a good addition to the Yuri that's available in English, and um that's important to me.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you two liked it. Because I did not.
Oh no.
Which is a lie. I'm just joking. I did like this.
I was gonna say, what could you possibly like? I could see it not being your favorite, but like you didn't like it.
No, the thing is, I did like this book. As you said, Morgana, it's very sweet. It's very like almost saccharine and nice, and it's simple. But I think I have the most problems with this book out of the three that we read. And this is kind of related to the polish that we brought up earlier. I feel like Hana Kage Alt made some creative choices and like things like the paneling. The paneling is probably the ones that maybe bothered me the most. Was there's some like clutter on the page with some of the text and the way the panels flow into each other along with like the bubbles. Sometimes it wasn't like very clear or like it was a little confusing. I forgot which page it was, but there was a bubble that flowed into the bottom panel and it made you want to read that first, even though like it should have been like a different spot as well. Some small things like it's like someone who is like way more versed or like has more experience like with paneling and stuff like that, they would know not to avoid those kind of like certain pitfalls, maybe to call them. And then there are a couple art things too with like the anatomy or like maybe the posing of the characters that was like a little wrong. Where is it? There was the one I noticed is one of them is reaching for the other's hand, and it was clearly the wrong hand, the way it was drawn, than the one that ended up holding them in the next panel. Like small stuff like that. Like they're not major things, but it was a lot of those that I noticed. And then that along with like the Red String mangas, like translation and lettering, some of the choices felt like a little awkward. I do want to talk about the title. It's called Senpai no Kohai, and earlier I talked about like I do prefer titles that you don't need any kind of prior knowledge. I understand why they went with Senpai no Kohai because, man, that's like such a cultural thing in Japan. This age gap, when you're in
Mhm.
school
And
between upper
also,
and lower classmen.
like, calling it upperclassmen and lowerclassmen, it doesn't flow.
It has a different implication. It really
Yeah.
is different. This is definitely one of the cases where, like, if you're leading into what Senpai Kohai mean in Japanese, there really isn't a good English translation that will, like, get that across in just, like, replacing those two words. You literally need, like, extra context to explain why this is, like, a different thing than upperclassmen and lowerclassmen. And, that's fucking hard. I get it. So, at first when I started reading and I looked at the title, I was like, why did they call it this? And then I started reading, I was like, oh, this is very important to, like, their relationship. Even, them not referring to each other as Senpai and Kohai anymore and actually calling themselves as names. God, that's such a thing in all, like, romance manga.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, no, now I'm calling you by your first name. It's like, that's not a thing in English.
One
People
of
just call
my
each other by their
one of
first
my
name.
biggest pet peeves when I was watching Cardcaptor Sakura, I was watching it in Japanese with subtitles, and the subtitles, the characters were using each other's first names.
Right, and you knew that there's that one scene.
There's a scene where Shaoran calls Sakura Sakura for the first time, and it's like a big deal, and it doesn't come across in the subtitles. Pissed me off.
You can't do that when you're reading super fast. You want a big paragraph where you gotta pause, Morgana?
No, but he should have been referring to her as Kinomoto the whole time, because it's not like people don't refer to each other by their last names ever in English. You know what I mean?
That happened later on in the story too, though, right?
Yes, yeah, it's like
So again,
very
like,
yeah.
maybe people weren't doing that at the beginning, and then they suddenly ran to that. They're like, "Oh shit, we fucked up," but now we can't go back. It's just like that stuff happens all the time.
Okay,
The
but Cardcaptor
localization.
Sakura has been around for like 30 years almost. They could have this was on Crunchyroll like 10 years ago. I'm sure they could have figured it out.
Morgana, those people are being paid pennies.
I know, it's not their fault. But anyway, point is,
Yes.
it was important. I was mad about it.
This is
get it,
this
I
is
get it.
semi common because I've seen it happen with like the character says Nissan and they
Yeah, brother.
they instead of saying brother in the subtitles they say just the name of the character, and I'm like,
Because that's more natural in English.
yeah, it's more natural in English, but I'm like, you're gambling because what if there's a episode where they get swapped by a doppelganger, and instead of saying Nissan, they say the name, and they're like, I know my brother would never actually call me Nissan, or no, we're never actually calling about my name. Did call me Nissan? You know what I'm saying? Like, and at that point, the translator has to come up with a new plot mechanic to explain it. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's
Oh,
always
yes.
tricky when you're not like
Oh, yes.
translating directly to what you're saying.
You know, it's so funny. I always used to think that characters like the translating as, calling the character like bro or sis was so like Americans don't talk like that. That translation doesn't work. My son literally calls my daughter sister. Just
That's pretty cute.
just sister. He learned how to call her sister before he learned her name. So
I hope when
jokes
he
on me.
learns. I hope when he learns the name, he says Sister Sabrina.
He
just keeps
does
it.
he does know her name now. He can say Severina. I mean, he's 2, so he doesn't do it well. He doesn't say sister very well either. For the longest time, we didn't realize he was calling her sister because his S sounds are K sounds. So we thought he was calling her like Kiki. It was like kicker. But he's getting better at his S sounds now. So yeah, he calls her sister most of the time. Every now and then he does call her Severina, or sometimes he will say Sister Severina.
Cute.
Yeah, so jokes on me. Kids totally call their siblings brother and sister. I just didn't think it was a thing.
Well, it just depends, right? Maybe some families all do that, and others will look at that and be like you and be like, "What is this?" No, we don't call each other brother and sister.
And Severina does call her brother bro, but that's mostly because she's watched too much Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
That's good.
Yes.
She also calls me bro sometimes, so
Awesome.
No, she's not supposed to call me bro. I said, "Listen, I don't know why, but I just really think you should not be calling me bro. I just don't, or dude. I just can't. Just can't do that, okay?"
Oh, getting back to this title, in the afterword, we get some explanation from Alt that they drew this story because, they had this experience. They ran into a former crush. But they said it was like okay, this is like maybe like their translation thing, or like I don't know if it was just like the way Alt did this afterward. But I was very confused. Because on the second page of the afterword, they say they were able to make their commercial debut, get a publisher working. And it seems like they made a commercial debut with Senpai no Kohai? Is that it? But then, like, on the last page, they talk about how they couldn't make it into a full book without the help of crowdfunding. So, like, that was not clear to me in this afterword.
I thought it was that the chapters 1 and 2 were released in the magazine or something, and then it was re-released with the opportunity to write more. That's where chapter 3 came in. I thought that was. I guess I agree that it isn't 100% clear, but that's what I got from it.
Okay. That kind of ties to, like, my reaction to start when I read the third chapter. Because the third chapter is told from the perspective of the Kohai. But I didn't get that for a couple pages. I was confused. Because all the internal dialogue up to that point had been the senpai, Sayuri. And then, like, I started reading it, and I was like, okay. And then at one point, it became very clear, oh, no, wait, this is the Kohai's thoughts. And this is another, like, problem that happens, like, when you're translating from Japanese to English sometimes. In Japanese, it's way more clear which character is talking because they have mannerisms and there are certain Japanese, like, pronouns and use of, like, talking that makes it clear which character is talking. But in English, it's just all kind of, like, mute and the same. It's not really gendered. So that was a little confusing thing for me. Just want to bring that up. So yeah, I mean, in general, I liked Senpai no Kohai, but like there were way more instances of me just going, huh? Wait, what? For me, while I was reading this book out of the three. Let's see, is there anything else we want to mention about Senpai no Kohai?
The cover, for some reason, to me, it's the Kohai having the handkerchief up to Senpai's face. I always think that handkerchief is like an ear, so it's like an elf ear.
Same.
There's something about it that's just like it. I cannot unsee like an elf ear. So I always, not that I always stop, but like I always feel like this is supposed to be like a fantasy book in some way.
Senpai, would you like to come to the Ren Fair with me?
Yeah.
Like Dar has like the covers rotating up on her stream, and they're smaller. So like yeah, for far away, that handkerchief looks like an ear because it's at the perfect position and angle. Very funny. Oh, speaking of funny, this book was funny. It had comedy in it. I enjoyed that.
Yes. It was definitely, the other two were definitely not humorous
No.
at all. And so this one had some levity, which was really nice.
Okay, but if we're done talking about Senpai no Kohai, I guess like we forgot to do like our recommendations for alternative as well. Let's start with Senpai no Kohai. Darfox, do you recommend this?
Yeah. I think it's a nice book that's easy to read.
And Morgana, you recommend this too?
Yeah, I could see this really doing well for some people who are, like I said, I feel like it has a wider audience than the other ones we read.
I'm thinking. I think Morgana's right that it's recommendable, but I just don't know if I personally recommend it. I don't know, like, yeah, it's like these, like I said earlier, these books didn't grab me really. I think I would recommend it if you like Yuri, like if this is what you're looking for. I don't know about alternative for myself.
Yeah.
I'd recommend alternative if people are into like rock music or especially like alternative rock and stuff like that. And like it's a really short story, so like it's the barrier to read is really low. So just depending on the person if they're really into a story about like a young musician and something like that.
Yeah, I think I want to read more by the creator because I really like their artwork. It's really dynamic, and I'd like to, this is so short that I could recommend it, but it doesn't feel like it's a substantive recommendation, you know what I mean? I don't not recommend it, but I'd like to see what else they have because I feel like maybe there might be more there for someone.
Roger.
Yeah, I don't know. I think like I'm not really interested in like more stuff by these creators based on what I read. I know Morgana, you said your point about like it's important to look at like things that aren't fully polished, fully commercial.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm not gonna like drop everything and go look for these artists again necessarily, but I would be interested in more by them just out of curiosity. Because they're new to English and because Manga Mavericks is new to the publishing thing, I would be willing to give these artists another chance. And I'm guessing that, I mean, I think at least two of them have other stuff with Manga Mavericks books, so I would I'd be curious about them for sure. Yeah, I'm not gonna drop everything and go look for them, but if somebody said, "Hey, here's another book by this person," I'd say, "Oh, cool, all right, I'll read that."
The thing that's funny is they have upcoming books, like Princess Da Huang and Other Tales, or Great Metal God. Like they have other titles that are upcoming for Manga Mavericks books that I'm like way more interested in.
I was looking, Darfox and I, before we started recording, were looking at their stuff to come, and
Like Fish God, right? Yeah.
they look
And
really cool. So
it's like it's such a different mix of like things that they had for these 6 books. Um they're still kind of, I can tell that they're trying to like kind of find what niche they're going to supply through publishing. And I'm hoping that they'll lean harder into like kids manga because they had some stuff like Ballet Hero Fantasy. I think that was a Koto Koto comic book. And we don't really have like a good kids manga publisher for manga here in the US. Like we have Viz that puts out some stuff like we mentioned, right? Like Kirby and Super Mario. But also I don't know what the market is for those kids manga either. They're probably not very big. But it would be really cool to see Manga Mavericks like kind of lead into like those more, you know, for younger general reading audiences because that's a niche that isn't really like given any market here in the West. Like I would love to see that kind of stuff. Uh, Dar, is there anything else you want to mention?
About these 3 books or in general? Because I did read Bond.
Oh yeah, you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, Bond is the story that's Journey to the West. Oh, actually, sorry, I should have had uh, the information up. It's by Zenzo and translation by Robert Harkins, lettering by Victoria Esnard, and the editing by Victoria Esnard as well. And then a bunch of staff credits with the Manga Mav team as well. So Bond is a Journey to the West story. Journey to the West is like obviously super famous. Like there's tons of Japanese media that reference it. Dragon Ball Z famously is based like very loosely based on Journey to the West. Um, but this one basically kind of it's a short story that just focuses on the Monkey King kind of having a deeper bond or developing a deeper bond with the monk. I forget what the monk's name is, but um the whole story of Journey to the West is basically this monk has to go to India to pick up these um like Buddhist scriptures and stuff. Um and he has like the Monkey King with him as kind of like a bodyguard. And I think along the way they pick up like 2 other like demon people. Um and in this story revolves around basically like the famous band that's around the Monkey King's head. That is basically in the original story that's to make the Monkey King submissive because
Yes.
he's a pretty wild and kind of aggressive character, and normally he wouldn't take orders from anybody. He like his whole origin story is that um he literally leaped all the way up to heaven, or at least he thought it was heaven, and he put graffiti on the gates of heaven. Basically, he's like, "Oh, I made it all the way to the pillars of heaven. Nobody can stop me." And he put like graffiti on the pillars of heaven because he's so unruly and he's so just like foul tempered that like he even disrespects heaven in that way, right? And then turns out Buddha was just toying with him, and he was no match for Buddha, and he was humbled by Buddha. Um, I can't wait to get to that part of the Buddha manga. And then and part of his like punishment is that he has to help the monk, and they put the ring around his forehead that constricts and crushes his skull if he ever like disobeys. It's actually really similar to like the whole Inuyasha Sit Boy thing, except it's like a little more violent. Like, the idea of crushing your skull, but at any point the monk can command them. But in this adaptation, it's actually completely different. In this adaptation, um, like it was a trick. The monk was convinced to put it on him by a demon, and the demon just wanted to like make the Monkey King weaker. It was just like a ban to weaken his powers. And when he did that, the demon was like, "Ah, I tricked the monk. Now the Monkey King can't protect you," and he basically kidnapped the monk because they want to eat the monk. Because they eat the monk, they get like tons of spiritual power and become more powerful. Um, and the whole like crux of this, I'm gonna spoil it. But like the whole crux of it is that like um through interacting with humans, Monkey King has kind of fallen in love with mankind because his kind is very selfish, and he's seen that mankind, they do charity, they donate, they help each other. And with that power, he like breaks the bond, and then he fights for like his master, and then they free him, and that's kind of it. It's pretty straightforward, but I do really like the character designs. I love how the Monkey King looks in this. He looks very like young, like a boy Monkey King. Um, and I just really like the intricacy in like the character designs and their clothing and stuff, and the way the demons look. Um, I don't know how accurate it is to like Journey to the West stuff. I don't know if the Monkey King ever develops a love for humanity or not. Um, because I never actually read the original story. I've only seen a couple of adaptations and stuff like that.
It's an old story. It's been adapted a billion times, Dar. You can do
Yeah,
whatever the hell you want.
yeah. And I already know, obviously, it breaks the whole band. or the original band purpose. So yeah, it's cool. I don't really know how I'd recommend it, besides like if you really like Journey to the West stuff and you want to see like a more like visually accurate like Journey to the West thing, as opposed to like Dragon Ball Z, which doesn't look anything like what Journey to the West looks like. You know what I'm saying? Um,
Yeah.
you should pick it up. It's pretty cool.
Just make me want to make you guys read Sayuki.
I would love to read Sayuki.
I'm gonna do it.
But
Let's do
also,
it.
Morgana, you just want us to see your husband, okay?
I know. I know. Yes, there is a character who looks just like my husband, but also I really like Sayuki.
Dar, I'm glad you you enjoyed Bonds, because unfortunately it did not really hit for me.
What do you hate, the Monkey King?
No, I don't hate the Monkey King,
Yeah,
but
I just want to with you. Like
No.
it really is a kind of series. Like there's not much you could say about it. It's basically like one adventure. I think in the beginning, doesn't it say so like, oh, this is just one adventure that happened on their adventure, right? So like,
yeah, yeah, just nothing about that book really kind of like got
you could go
anything
there.
out of me besides like, this is okay.
Huh?
That was basically like
Yeah,
my
if you want.
response to the whole thing.
Oh no, you're not interrupting. Fine.
Kind of like for a lot of
You're not interrupting. It's fine.
the
I'm not.
these
They're
6
talking.
books that were gifted. So, but yeah, let's get back to our 3 titles: Alternative, Senpai no Kohai, and The Murderer and Her Runaway Desire. I will say, out of those 3, I like The Murderer and Her Runaway Desire the most. Then probably Senpai no Kohai, and then Alternative. That is my ranking. Do you have a ranking, Darfox?
Senpai no Kohai, Alternative, and then Murderer and the Runaway Desire.
Gotcha. What about you, Morgana?
Mine's the same as Dar's.
Okay.
We're opposite you, Dakazu. Once again, we find ourselves at an impasse.
At the impasse. I did talk to Seamus about like these books, and he said they were all okay, and he didn't really have much to say about them. That's basically what he said. So, but there you go. I hope Lum will still send us review copies, because you know, like I said, the stuff that's upcoming from them, I'm very interested in.
I mean, I generally like the stuff that we got here. It's just, you know, I'm not going to put extra sauce on it. You know,
No extra Darfox sauce for Manga Mavericks,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, I mean, the fact that these titles are available,
The fact that they're in publishing, like that's super impressive.
yeah, and I don't think I personally didn't hear about any of these creators before, so like there is immense value in that already.
Absolutely, and super congratulations to them for getting a publishing gig up and running. That's awesome. I am definitely looking forward to what they have coming in the future.
Yeah, they got a Atsushi Yamamoto manga. I don't think he's ever been published in English. I've read some of that guy's manga, and it's way more extreme than what they're putting out, which is Sinbad, which I think is a smart choice. That's only 4 volumes. It's not that long either. And I think more relatable. But thank you again to Lum, Colton, and the rest of the Manga Mavericks team, and also the people at Red String Manga for these titles. And yes, let's go ahead and end this episode then, and close out 2025. I want to thank Darfox and Morgana for joining me this week. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, wherever else you can find us. Check out our website, mangamachinations.com. Our Tumblr is mangamachinations.tumblr.com. Check out our YouTube channel. We have youtube.com/MangamaCTV. We also have Mangamac Watches and Nakayoshi Gaming. If you want to financially support us, you can buy us a coffee. Head over to ko-fi.com/Mangamac. Come join our Discord server. Head over to discord.me/Mangamac. Send us emails, mangamachinations@gmail.com. Or follow us on social media at Mangamac Podcast. That's Manga MAC Podcast. We're mostly on Blue Sky, but we also have Instagram, Twitter, everything else. Or you can follow our personal social media. Follow me at Doxzu, follow Darfox at Darfox8, and follow Morgana at Morgana Relina. Okay, everyone, thank you so much for listening to us this week. Bye-bye.